I've been a Prisma user for a while now, and when it comes to developer experience, there's no ORM quite like it. However, there are some quirks when it comes to query type safety that most developers aren't aware about. So today, I'm going to show you a trick I use all the time to keep my queries safe and error-free. So let's get to it. Just as a quick refresher on Prisma, it's an ORM that allows us to query our database in a fully type-safe manner. So once we've defined our model, so in this case, we're going to be looking at this user object with an ID, name, email, and a few other fields, we can query it and then select exactly what we want. So here we're asking for the ID, name, and email, and you can see in the returned payload, we have exactly that. If we remove name, for instance, you'll see that is reflected and we can no longer query it here. Prisma also allows us to get these payload types using this built-in type user get payload for the model, and we pass in that select clause and then we get that exact type back. Inlining the select or an include clause in Prisma is a perfectly fine way to use the ORM, but sometimes we're going to want to extract that into a separate object so we can reuse it throughout our app. So in different functions, different queries, and other stuff like that. So let's take a look at example 2 here. Here within this Prisma user create call, we are using this user data and user args object. So let's take a look here. So for the select, we are going to be typing it using this generated type user select, and we are adding the ID, email, and role. Now, you'd be surprised to see that in this actual created user object, it does not reflect the types we selected. So it just assumes that we selected everything. And if we go to created user dot say email verified and we expect it to be there, it's not actually going to be there. It's going to be undefined, and this might lead to some unexpected behavior in your app. Now, why does it actually do this? So when we type this user args object with this user select type, we're specifying that this object can be any number of the different combinations of columns and relations within that select clause. So, we could specify email verified and say that was true, and that would still be a valid type. Therefore, there is no way that this Prisma call can actually know what objects were assigned true or false or relations were included when it actually runs that query. So you'll notice that we can actually just say email verified is true. And even though that's not in the select args, that is perfectly fine in TypeScript. Therefore, TypeScript has to assume that this is the most broad type possible, and it's going to assume that we specified all of the base relations. We can address this issue by using the TypeScript satisfies operator. So satisfies is going to look at a value, so this user select object, for instance, and then check that it matches the provided type. So we do know that user select is a Prisma user select, so there's no error there. And once it does that, it essentially forgets that it even looked at it. So it's essentially like removing the satisfies clause entirely. So you'll see that if we try to add email verified, it's going to say that it doesn't exist. If we go ahead and add it back and try again, it still says it doesn't exist. When we go down and look at this created user, you'll see that because we passed in this user select with the satisfies, that type information is preserved where we have ID, email, and role is true, and then the created user is of the correct return type. If we remove the satisfies, you'll see it has the same behavior, but this has the added benefit that it also checks the object is of the correct type. So here with this email verified typo, it's going to throw that error. However, the created user still is the same. You see we get this email verified never. If we remove the satisfies, this is just an object, so there's really no type information to base it off of, and the created user is still the same. As I touched on previously, extracting the select and include clauses into separate objects is pretty useful for modularity across your app, so reusing those clauses in queries or functions. And I'm going to show you another example on why this satisfies operator is so powerful and how we can use it in functions with Prisma. So here we have this find user and enhance function, which is a generic function which takes in this user select, and it's going to find a user and then populate some additional data. So this is a toy example, so we're just going to be returning those arguments, but you could also run some other logic or fetch some data from a third-party API or literally do anything else to this user object here. So you'll notice when we call this, we have this first example with user where we pass in the select clause of name true. So we're not using satisfies here, but because this is generic, you see that we get the user back with just the name. So that type information is preserved. Here, we're going to be using this enhanced user args, which is satisfied with the user select, and you'll see that this user too has the correct relations in it. On top of that, because we are using satisfies, we can pass it into this user get payload helper function and then get the correct return type. So you'll see that the account relation is included. In example 2, this user select object, when we're typing it with this user args without the satisfied, is getting widened way too much and we don't get that precise type information. And that's how we can use the satisfies operator with the Prisma types to make sure our queries are as safe as possible. So if you enjoyed this type of content, please like the video and consider subscribing. I'm going to be making videos every single week. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.